So welcome back. In the last lesson we looked at creating variables. Let's now move on to doing inputs and outputs, and by that I mean we want to be able to write data as well as to read data, okay, content. So let's look at the steps for writing data or content. So if you notice here, I have this word, this keyword, cout. Okay, so cout. And so whenever we use cout, okay, and again I'm showing you here, whenever we want to write something to the display, to your screen, we say cout. And whenever we want to get something from the user by them typing on the keyboard, we use cin. So looking at cout, there are basically two ways to write data. You simply write a string, okay, such as hello world, or you are able to take a string such as hello and use a variable name. Okay, so we will look at these two ways of writing data before we look at cin. Okay, so notice this is just a string and this is just a variable. All right, so let's look at this. I will open up Replit. So in the last video we looked at creating variables. So let me get rid of this. Okay, and so what I want to do is to simply display something on the screen which we say is writing. Okay, so we want to write some data. To do that, I will simply say cout. Okay, but before I do cout, I'm going to say using namespace std. Okay, I need to put line 2. Okay, so I'm going to say cout. I'm going to put in quotes hello world. All right, and of course we need to end every line with a semicolon. Okay, we put the semicolon because the semicolon is how the computer knows that I am finished. Line 5 is finished. So what does this look like? Well, let's click run. Okay, and we see hello world. So we have written hello world to our screen. Let's try adding another one. So under here, I'm gonna create a variable. Okay, let's say size, and let's initialize it with the value of 24.75 semicolon. And so now I want to make a sentence. So I'm going to say cout. Okay, and I'm going to say the size is, okay, and now whenever I want to insert the variable, I simply create the new the less than sign again, and then I put the name of the variable. Okay, and then I want a full stop, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to put a full stop. Okay, and so that's how I mix variables with strings. Remember, strings are anything that are in between two double quotes. What does this look like? Okay, I see hello world exclamation point. Of course it would be nice if I had a space here. Okay, and of course if I had a space here between the is and the 24. We can fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and put a space. Okay, and then I'm going to come here and put a space. All right, so notice now everything lines up properly, except here I have an extra space, and here I still don't have a space. Let's fix that. Okay, so we have hello world and then this. Okay, but let me fix this one first. Right, so let me come here. All right, let's run it again just to make sure. Okay, so this works properly, right? This works properly. Looks nice. We need to fix this one. Okay, so to fix this one, I will simply put this on a new line. So to say that you want it on its own line, you simply will do the two less than signs again, and you will say ENDL, okay, which means keep this on its own line. Everything else should be on another line. So when I run this, you'll notice that it's on its own line. Okay, and so the next sentence is also on the next line. All right? Okay, and so that's how we do it. Every time I want to have the output be on its own line, I simply use ENDL, which means end line. Now I could keep going. I could add something else. I could say cout goodbye. Okay. Then of course, if I wanted, I could also say ENDL. Okay. All right. Now, I want to show you that if you notice, I did not put an ENDL here on line 7. What happens? Well, when I run this, right? Notice both of them are on the same line. Again, we don't want that. So that is the fix. I'll come here, remove the semicolon, and put back ENDL. So now this will be on one line, and then the computer will move to the next line, and then it will put this one, as you will see right now. Right? So each of them on their own line. Okay, so that's how you write data. That's how you write content. And you'll be doing this over and over. The only little trick that you must make note of is that you need to put extra spaces whenever you notice that the variable name sort of sticks to the string. Okay, so we don't want that. You want to make sure it's nicely formatted so that when you read it, it's easy to read. So that is how you write data. Pretty straightforward. Now let's look at how we actually read data. And when I say read data, I mean getting some input from the user where they use their keyboard. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, to read data, we basically need to cover 3 steps. Step 1, you need to create what is called a prompt, okay, which simply means you tell the user what you want them to do. So if I come back here, okay, and I come down here, okay. For now, I will comment these out. I don't want these to be shown. Okay, so whenever you want the computer to ignore a line of code, you put 2 forward slashes. Okay, so if I run this, nothing happens, right? And that's the idea. Let me clear the screen. I'm going to click the trash can. Okay, so I want to get some input from the user. The first thing I want to do is to tell the user what I want them to do. And so that's a string. I could say, please enter your age. And then I'll put a colon and then a space. The space is very important, okay? So always make sure to put a space. Now, Notice I do not put an ENDL, all right? And the reason is because I want the user, I want this text, this string, to be on the same line. So when I click run, okay, it's right here. It doesn't move. It's staying on the same line, which means the user will be typing in the answer on the same line. Okay, so that's why we don't put ENDL. So whenever you're creating a prompt, you do not put ENDL. Okay, you do not skip the line. You do not go to a new line. So that's step one, the prompt. Now after I have the prompt, right, and the prompt can be anything. For example, how old are you? Question mark. Enter the value, and so on. Now step two, we will then create a box or create a variable that will ultimately store what the user types in. Okay, so here, since age is always an integer, I'm going to simply say int age. Notice I don't put anything in the age variable. Okay, I just create it. Okay, that's step two. And of course, maybe if do that. So in step three, okay, all right. In step three, right, we then save the value that the user enters. Okay, and how do you do that? Well, you use cin, and then you use the greater than sign, two of them, and then the name of the variable. Okay, cin, two greater than signs, name of the variable. So here now, I'm going to say cin, two greater than signs, the name of the variable that I want to store what the user has typed in. Okay, so that's it. Those are the three steps we need to do: prompt, variable to store the answer, and then finally storing the answer. So if I run this, okay, I get the prompt. Now notice this cursor is telling me I need to type in the answer. So let's say I put 21. Okay, now when I press enter, then the computer will go ahead and take that number and store it in the age variable. Okay, so when I press enter, right, it's now stored. Good. So one final thing we can do is to simply print it out. So let's print it out. Easy enough, right? Cout you are we're gonna say age again. I'll put a space, years old, full stop, and then let's put a new line, right? ENDL. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Now every time I run the program, the computer will execute every line again. Okay, so it will start executing from line 9. Okay, so again, it's asking me, enter your age. So if I say 21, enter, right, it stores it, and then finally it prints you are 21 years old, which is what we do here. So this is how you actually get or read data from the user. All right, so of course you could use in this case here where I say enter a value, you could have probably done double, right? So you can use any kind of data type that you have learned, right? So the steps: step 1, the prompt; step 2, create a variable that will hold the answer; and step 3, when the user presses enter, you store that answer in the variable that you created in step 2. Now there's another version of the of how to do this. where you create the variable first. Okay, so you might see some people do it this way. Okay, they create the variable first, then they create the prompt, and then of course they store the answer. Okay, both versions are okay, both versions are acceptable. Ultimately it's sort of a preference, but the key thing you must remember is you have to create the variable before you can store something in it. You must create the variable before you can store something in it, right? That's the key thing you must remember. So version 1 and version 2 does that. So any one of them will work. And so ultimately you decide which one you want to use. Sometimes you might find it very convenient to do it this way. And other times, as you get more experience, you'll find out that this way is more convenient for you for any particular problem. All right, so this video is getting a bit long, so I'll leave it here. Again, this is how you read and write data. So up here, we looked at how to write data, okay? And down here, we looked at how we can read data. And again, of course, ultimately write that data as well, right? So by now, by the end of this video, you should be able to write just regular strings. You should be able to write out strings mixed in with variables. And of course, you should be familiar with how to put each line, each string on its own line by using ENDL. And finally, you should be able to follow the pattern where we read data. Okay, we create a prompt, we must create a variable, and then finally we store what the user has entered in that variable using cin. All right, I'll leave it at that, and I will see you in the next video. Again, there's a lot of things I have not yet explained. For example, line 1 and line 2 and line 14, okay, as well as line 4. However, these things are just there to help us write our code, and as we progress throughout the semester, we will talk a bit more about them. All right, so I'll see you in the next lesson.